tokenizing farming. So I'm here in Japan farming, and partnered with a farm to learn the Japanese farming system, learn their farmers market system. I'm in charge of basically they're introducing a kind of growing and selling vegetables. So they've kind of given me the duty. They've just hired some more folks. But I want to talk about tokenizing farming, especially in a place like Japan. Japan is possibly the largest co-op on the planet, right? Cooperative. And they, they force, for example, the government to build around them, right? It's like in the States, if you want to build a road, they got this eminent domain, and you just build a road. Not in Japan. Japan, ultimately, the farmers in this, by this, the cooperative, have far more power than any intimate domain issue, right, behind it. So I want you to imagine that, and also with farming, for example, there's a lot of leftover waste, like your vegetables don't sell or anything else. And imagine if you could earn a token that could be used to purchase any of these goods. And imagine all farmers having access to this token. So, for example, you could tie your crop to it. So think of Bitcoin back in 2009. You had to mine it. There was no community. There was no exchanges. There was nothing you could do with Bitcoin except for mine it. And it wasn't until 2010 or even 2011, I can't remember when the pizza transaction happened, when that first pizza transaction. You see, these blockchain networks already exist. So building a token on these existing frameworks that are finite, that ultimately work in a very similar way to Bitcoin, and to kind of simplify how Bitcoin works, what it does is imagine there is 21 million Bitcoin. They drop down into this pool. The miners basically, solve a problem and they gain access to it. That's the mining. It takes a lot of power, to gain access to this. So we don't need to use power. What is the power in the farm token or the Sprouts token or whatever, whatever we're going to end up calling? I'm calling it Sprouts, the Sprouts token, right? The Sprout token. Is the energy used to create that good is no different than the energy processing. And we don't need to spend energy on the processing because those networks already exist. So we do the same mechanic, and this is how the token, this is my framework that I envisioned back in 2010, describing to you right now. Imagine that just like Bitcoin, these Sprout tokens end up dropping down into a pool. It looks at all the transactions taking place, and it divides that pool out to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are the creators of the token and those participants, the collaborators, and the consumer. There is the creator also in the, and it's an 80-20, right? So 80% goes to that, 20% of that token goes to what I call the network and the fund. Think of the fund as the Bitcoin Global Reserve Fund. And the Bitcoin Global Reserve Fund gets 20%, and the network of that 20% gets 80%. So you have 80-20, and then on this 80, you've got 80-20, where it's the network as a kind of an airdrop, and also the fund. I'll talk about that. So, and then on the first slot, 80% of the first 80% goes towards who? The consumer, because without consumers, we have to reward the consumers. Without consumers who buy our vegetables and everything else, there is no market. So think of Burt Bees, and then of that, 80% is shared between the collaborator and the creator. Now, of that 80% goes to who's more important, the other collaborators, the other farmers, the other partners in the tokenization framework. And then finally, 20% of that 80-20 goes to the creators. And the creators are the app builders, are the core group who make this token possible. So I would be considered one of the creators, of it. Coders, other co-founders who are participant in making the Sprouts token possible. There is no, and this is very important, there is no one who holds or controls the token. This is autonomous. When you create a token, whether it's the Sprout token or the Ganj token or whatever you want to call it, look, Chogembo. Right here is a kestrel. This is a kestrel. Holy shit, this is a rare. That's a kestrel right there. See it? It's a kestrel hovering around. There's a kestrel. Holy cow. Kestrels, Chogembo, aren't supposed to be here. Look at this guy. They're not supposed to be. If you look at Wikipedia, he's landed right there. Anyway, sorry. I left the Chogembo. Chogembo is kestrel in Japanese. And they're the coolest bird. And you don't see them. They come up north. I don't know for they're little field mice or whatever. So, the important thing with this framework is, unlike number one, just like Bitcoin, every token has a set amount of tokens that is calculated by the algorithm. Every token is not controlled by anyone. I don't control the Sprouts token. I basically I seed it into existence, and that's the creator. Anyone can create a token. In the Foundups Tokenization framework, anyone creates a token, and you can start adding your widget to that token, right? There's a really narrow road right here. And then basically, all the parts are there. Like you put your barcode on your product, everything else. The person who scans it, gets access to the pool, and ultimately, it doesn't matter how many times you scan. It isn't based on the amount. I mean, technically, if you want to go and go to a grocery store and scan the products, right? Scan the thing. You scan 10 of them, it doesn't matter. You're sharing in that pool. It isn't based on the quantity of products you buy. It's based on the participation and sharing of it. And there is the AI that is constantly calculating the valuation of the widget, right? Whether it's my microgreen or whether it is corn you're growing or whatever you're growing. As the person becomes a more regular consumer, the valuation of that person, then the amount of the pool they earn is going to change and increase in value. So all this stuff I've written out, and it's part of the I would say the mechanics. And I've got a video of the blue glove where I talk about it. So, and then the corona, that was February on 2020. And then the coronavirus basically exploded in the States. So now I'm back in Japan. Instead of doing the Ganj token, I'm doing the Sprout token. And, right now I'm just working on getting the microgreen business started. Oh, shoot, I forgot the pallets. because I was making this video. Oh well, next time on that. I don't need them right now anyway. Now I'm going to go to sushi, but I just want to talk about the idea of a ubiquitous tokenization framework that can be, so anyone, so imagine this, anyone can make a token. The token is finite. At the end of 10 years, they expire. They stop being, that's it, right? The mining stops in 10 years. And at that point, you have two choices. One is you can cash out and get Bitcoin at the value that you have, or you can take what you have and invest in Foundups and kind of diversify your thing. And actually, you can do that at any time. So the idea is that over time, the value and why 10 years data of Bitcoin, and that's the data that we're going to use to set the valuation parameters of these tokens. We can take Ethereum, which is only 6 years old, Bitcoin, which is 10 years old, other ones, and use that data to basically set the valuation of these tokens. So these tokens aren't available on exchanges. They kind of exist off-chain, is how I'm thinking it would be. And they wouldn't be subject to manipulation, right? Because the tokens initially would only be used to exchange for goods. You can use for exchange for goods, and then at some point, people will say, "Hey, I'll pay you, whatever, Bitcoin, fiat, whatever, for these tokens." And the cool thing is as a farmer, when I'm exchanging my, my goods for the tokens, I'm gathering the tokens, right? So in a way, it's like I'm mining. I'm creating a product that I'm making available, and then I'm gathering, right, in exchange for my goods. So that's it. That's the Foundups Tokenization Framework. Rather simple. If you're interested, you can go to foundups.org. Go to foundups.org and learn more, participate in getting going. And why not start in Japan, which is a very agricultural driven folks? And I have certain questions. Will they go for it? Setting up the website, the wallet. Initially, what we're going to do is just make it like a mock-up, like a web app using it, and not even putting on the blockchain initially. Working out how people are interacting with the prototype, and then once we're satisfied with that, and once people are using it and everything else, because I can still create kind of a database token, still do the exchange and all that stuff, and not even necessarily need the blockchain, even though what you want the blockchain for is the immutability and kind of the security that the token ultimately would offers. So you don't want, like, for example, any one person controlling the token. And that's one thing I don't like about these tokens, is that all these tokens, you've got a small group that get a foundation, they're controlling all these tokens, whereas it's not, in a way, it's not fair, it's not equitable to the other folks. They should always get a payout, as being a creator or collaborator or anything else, with it. So I'm here. I'm going to sushi now. All right, hope you enjoyed the talk. Undadu.